Me to your booth. I appreciate being here. I hope you're having a good show. I was asked to talk about my journey in partnering with industry and the impact on ophthalmology. And I kind of thought I'd start with my journey and how to become an ophthalmologist is kind of what I'm going to start with. And it's a kind of, for all you millennials who may not be aware of this, this is one of my favorite Grateful Dead songs. And it's What a Long, Strange Trip It's Been. So the lyrics to this song are kind of like an overview of my career in ophthalmology, and that is that sometimes the light's all shining on me, other times I can barely see. Lately it occurs to me what a long, straight, strange trip it's been. So I'll start with my journey to becoming an ophthalmologist, and we'll talk about industry a little bit later on. This is kind of a fun slide. This is my brother Alan on the left, that's me on the right. Here I am, I'm 8 years old, I'm catching a fish. But the reason I show this slide was the most momentous day that occurred to me actually occurred when I was 8 years old, when I lived next to a farm. And living next to a farm, the farmer slaughtered a pig. And when he slaughtered the pig, he gave me the pig eye and he put the pig eye in my hand. Nowadays they put him in jail for doing that. But I took the pig eye home to my mom, and he said, wait till your dad gets home. My dad came home and we dissected the pig eye, and I had it in formaldehyde next to my bed. And that pig eye got me interested in ophthalmology, and I knew all the parts of the eye when I was 8 years old. And that became my, kind of like what I always knew I wanted to do. When I was 8 years old, I knew I wanted to be an ophthalmologist. And I told my son this story, by the way, as an aside. And in telling him this story as an aside, I told him that you have to have a passion. I told him a story about the pig eye, and his response to me was, so Dad, I guess you didn't have a lot of friends growing up, did you? Everybody should have somebody in their life who's larger than life. And that was my grandfather. And my grandfather owned a coal company in New York called Donnenfeld Coal. And Donnenfeld Coal was the largest coal company in Manhattan. And I asked him how he became so successful, and he told me what all of us try to do actually, and that is under-promise, over-deliver. Give people more than they want. And he would go into a building in Manhattan and tell them that I'd like you to try Donnenfeld Coal. Donnenfeld Coal burns longer than any coal that's out there, and if you use Donnenfeld Coal, your coal will last longer. And he would give them the coal, and sure enough, Donnenfeld Coal did burn longer than any other coal that they'd ever used before, and everybody switched to Donnenfeld Coal because it burned longer. And the key to his success was he gave them 6 tons of coal instead of 5. So that's kind of been my modus operandi. But the sad part of the story is my grandfather, great memories, died penniless after having the largest coal company in New York. And the reason for that was he never switched from coal to oil, which is what I've always thought about in my career, is that as ophthalmology has changed, you need to adapt to your change and make the changes that are necessary to become successful. So I've always been very willing and interested in trying new techniques and new technologies, because that's how we continue to grow. My first patent in ophthalmology was actually my eye. Again, about 25 years ago, I patented the unique concept that you could use restasis to improve the tear film, which would give you better cataract outcomes. At the time, no one even thought in those terms, but that was kind of like a novel idea. I was 1 year out of my fellowship at Manhattan Eye and Ear, and I came back after being at Wills Eye Hospital, and I came back to Manhattan, and they told me that there was a new trial coming, a new company. And my first real foray into industry was that I was going to have the opportunity to work on a new technology. And all I had to do was to do 1 day a week, come in and try this new technology. And I did that, and the technology took a little longer than we expected to develop. So it took me 6 years coming in once a day for free to do this new technology. And the technology worked out pretty well for me. It was the excimer laser. So my overnight success in refractive surgery was 6 years of paying my dues, doing the FDA clinical trials, and that got me into refractive surgery, which is one of my loves. And that was my first foray with industry, is I learned that ophthalmology and industry working together was a great combination. And after that I was hooked, and I always liked working with industry in different areas. I also learned a couple of valuable things, and that was in 2008, the FDA held a session in which a couple of unhappy patients came to the FDA saying that they wanted to have LASIK removed. They wanted to have LASIK withdrawn from being FDA approved. And I was brought in by ASCRS and the Academy to be the one person who would speak to the FDA about why we should keep LASIK and why it was still important. And what I did was I listened to everyone who spoke at the FDA hearing about why LASIK was bad. And the one thing I learned from them was that everybody who came into that meeting, and here I am speaking at the meeting, was unhappy, not with their surgical results so much, was unhappy with the fact that their doctor had abandoned them. They had a problem, they felt their doctor didn't care about it, or they sent them out without even caring about what they could do. So I promised myself that day that unhappy patients made me a better doctor, realizing that I would never abandon a single patient, whether it was my patient or someone else's patient, that anyone who had a problem, no matter how insignificant some people may think it would be, if it's important to the patient, it became important to me. So how have I been successful in practice? I started out with 3 ophthalmologists when I started my practice. We now have 85. And we have a great time in our practice. We really like what we do. I have great staff. Halloween is always a great experience. I also treasure my relationships with other ophthalmologists, and that's one of the reasons I like coming to ASCRS, is I get to see some of my favorite ophthalmologists and spend time with them. They give me an award every now and then, which I always like. I like getting awards because it makes me feel that I'm worth being married to my wife, because I married so far over my head that these awards make me feel a little bit more worthy, that I'm worthy of being still married to her. So that brings me up to just the final, and that is working with industry. Working with industry allows me to change the world of ophthalmology. It's amazing how I've been able to impact ophthalmology by giving ideas to industry, developing ideas with industry. And what I've learned about industry is that people change jobs. You may not stay at BVI your entire life. Maybe you hope you will, but maybe you won't. But it's the relationships that you have with people that count. And the people that I really relate to in industry are the people who I have had long-term experiences with, who've always had my back, have always been there to guide me, not always to the company's best interests, to what they thought was my best interest or my patient's best interest. And those are the relationships that I think are extraordinarily important, and forging those relationships with industry is really important. It's become very difficult though, by the way. In the old days, industry and ophthalmology could go out, you know, all the reps knew my kids' names, they spent time with my wife. It's a lot harder with the new guidelines, but you can still do it. And I really like working with a company that has the same type of value system that I have. And that's one of the reasons why I really like BVI, is I found that you have really been interested in the same things I'm interested in. And I think I spoke to you at your launch meeting, but in the darkest days of COVID in New York, which was the epicenter, when people were scared and we didn't have personal protective equipment, and here you see the United States hospital ship coming in, BVI was the company that kind of stepped forward and said, we want to help. We want to make a difference. We want to be involved with all of you. And they donated, I think, 80,000 personal protection units, I mentioned the other day, and it made an enormous difference. So again, summarizing, it's been a long, strange trip. It's the one-on-one relationships that I have with people in industry that I treasure. Those are important, and those allow me to work more functionally with these companies. You have people here who I treasure. I see one of my real treasures, Erin, sitting right in front of me here. We've known each other for, it seems like you're not that old, but maybe 15 years, a long time. Anyway, Ophthalmology is my passion. I love what I do. There's nothing more important in my life except for one thing. And that thing that's more important to me is family. So when you're working really hard at your jobs, realize what you do is really important, but it's not more important than spending time with family. And that's my final remark. Thank you very much. Yeah, exactly. Some old stories. Any questions for me while I'm sitting here? Nope. Yeah, I just got one today. I know. We have to add number 5 now. Anyway, thank you all. Good.